Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me, for of such is the kingdom of God."
We are the Chapman family, missionaries to kids, partnering with churches to reach their communities for Christ.
In this podcast, we want to share with you biblical principles for reaching and discipling kids.
Whether you are a parent, a pastor, or a children's ministry volunteer, our goal is to inspire and equip you with philosophical and practical tools to show children the fullness of the gospel.
Come join us on this epic adventure.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Mr. Forrest Ministries podcast, pointing kids to Christ in the home and in the church. And we are back again at Camp Manderley. And Miss Deborah, you'll have to tell me your last name again.
Addington.
Addington. I almost said Abington, and I didn't want to get that wrong. This is Deborah Addington, and she is our special guest this week. And we're going to pick her brain because you've been in kids ministry for how long?
For 38 years.
38 years.
Awesome.
Man, insert round of applause right here. That is fantastic. So can you give us a quick overview of how you started in kids ministry and the various ways that you've served in kids ministry over the years, just so our audience can kind of get to know you?
Sure. So as a young lady, my father was a missionary, and he assigned me a group of 3-year-olds when I was 12 years old.
Wow.
And so I taught them in Jamaica, and just remember even just playing with my dolls and teaching my dolls. And so it's definitely a gift that God has instilled in me. And so as I grew up and had children of my own, even before then though, I realized that I had that gift and I enjoyed being around kids. So then after that, taught 4-year kindergarten for several years, and then part-time children's director at my church of Glen Haven Baptist, and at the time it was in Decatur. But then God called my husband and I into full-time ministry as a full-time children's director, and I've served 3 different churches. So the last one that I was at, 11 years, then 8 years, and then how many ever years it was before then. But I was part-time, so.
And in what states were those
All
churches?
Georgia.
All in Georgia.
All in Georgia.
Okay, that's great. That's fantastic. So I guess I'll start with a question. What have you enjoyed the most over the years about serving God in kids ministry? Because I don't know if you've noticed this, Deborah, but there are some people who are in churches who are hesitant about serving in kids ministry because they don't know if they're, I'm scared. Am I, what's the word I'm looking for? Am I qualified? Am I, they're afraid, they're apprehensive, to even just take that step. But I think when people share what they love about it, they go, yes. Oh, well, that sounds like something I'd enjoy too. What have you loved about working in kids ministry over the
Their
years?
tender hearts. If I had to say anything, it would be the fact that children are so receptive to the Lord and to the gospel. But one scripture that over the years, and just in the past maybe 7 or 8 years, that God has just really impressed on me is Isaiah 40:11, that he tends his flock like a shepherd. He gathers the lambs in his arms and carries them close to his heart. Well, the lambs are baby sheep. Well, so if you turn it around to the humans, that's the children. So the children are the closest to his heart. And when he speaks, the reason he carries them, after reading a book on, I think by Kevin Lehman about shepherds, after he carries them, they know his voice. So when the Holy Spirit speaks to their heart, they realize and they listen. And they don't have an agenda like adults do.
Right.
So they're quicker to be able to be receptive to the gospel. And I have had the absolute pleasure and honor of seeing so many children come to the Lord and then living it out now. I'm in a season where I'm seeing some of them serving in different areas, and that's me that's so rewarding.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That is very rewarding. I remember the first time I was at a camp when one of the counselors at the camp said, I had you when I was a kid as my camp speaker. And that was the day I was like, okay, I'm officially old now. But it's happened like many times since. Like, so almost, maybe not every camp we go to, but every year there's a counselor that said, I had you when I was a kid, and they still remember that. And don't you think that's rewarding too?
Yes.
When a kid who's not a kid anymore, they're now an adult.
Yes.
They say, I remember when you taught me this, or I remember you being my Sunday school teacher.
Yes.
That's so rewarding, and just, man. So if anybody's listening to this and you're on the fence about kids ministry, man, just jump right in. Kids are very forgiving too, aren't they?
Oh.
If you don't do everything perfect, they're not like, hey, you didn't do everything perfect. If you just love them and you use the gifts God's given you, you do the best that you can with what you have. Not only will God bless that, but the kids will love you for it.
That's right.
They
That's
really
exactly
do.
right.
So, Deborah, what would you say is the most important lesson that you have learned over the years in kids ministry?
The most important lesson, just be yourself. Don't try to be perfect, because kids can see through fake.
Yes, they can.
They see through fake, and so they want you to be real with them. They want you to be honest with them. And when you're not, it turns them off. And I just never wanted to be that person that caused a child to be turned off by an adult. They see fake, but they see real.
Yeah.
They see love, and they're drawn to that. They see Jesus in you. So I guess that would be it.
That's good. That's good. Kids can sniff out authenticity as well as phoniness, and they respond well to it.
Yes. And truth.
Yeah.
Truth. They want the truth.
Yeah. Can I tell you the most important lesson I've learned in kids ministry?
Sure.
Don't use buckets or pools of slime.
Oh my goodness. I would disagree.
It takes forever to clean up.
Okay, so backstory on this.
Yeah.
So I was speaking at a soccer camp, and they played this game with this slime, and I'm like, oh man, we're gonna do this for our end of summer party. We always had a goodbye summer party at the end of summer before school started, and we played slime baseball, where we used slip and slides. You know the plastic tarps.
Yes.
As like the baseball diamond, and a kiddie pool was each of the bases, with the home plate being a like 4.5 foot tall, like above ground pool. And we filled them with slime. And so when the kids would kick the ball, we play kickball, and then try to run the bases, they'd be slipping and falling, and it was so funny to watch. And everybody's falling. And after a while, once everybody got slimy, when you made it into home base, you jumped in this big pool of slime, and it was nuts how slimy everyone got. But the hard part was
the cleaning,
because it's a powder that you add water to. So water doesn't wash it off; it just makes more slime. So here we are with the hose, and we're going like this. It's just making slime. The whole soccer field was just slime, and we're like, I don't know how to clean this up. And we sent all the kids home slimy, and it was fun.
So
hates
I
it.
totally appreciate your perspective of the most important thing you've learned, but I just want to let everybody know that slime is not worth it.
It is worth it.
Well,
it is so fun.
if you want to go on that end of it, here I'm trying to be all spiritual and everything.
Right.
But over the years, the mistakes that we've made as counselors, letting kids, too many to even talk about.
Yeah, right.
And you go, we'll never do that again.
Never do that again.
But that's part of it, and that's life, right?
Yeah.
If you don't try new things, or like if you don't innovate anything, you'll never stumble upon something that's really great. You know, you'll make lots of mistakes along the way, and be like, no, that's not happening again. And God will have mercy on him, ignorance, because he does. But even like trying new things, being willing to risk failure that's part of life, and take risks for God. Man, take risks for God.
Yeah.
So the way our laser tag ministry started was we just made it up at our church. We're like, I don't know what we're doing. Let's just make this up and reach some kids. And we took a risk. And boy, it paid off. And every year it paid off. And then
God really blessed.
God bless. And that's what we do now. And we just help other churches run these laser tag outreaches. And It's been amazing. So yeah, make plenty of mistakes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. So if you could tell kids ministry workers one piece of advice, because not everybody has the experience that you have, what piece of advice would that be?
Tell them about like serving or in what?
I mean, anything you want, because you have the experience, and if you could just.
Are we being spiritual or are we
being? Yes, absolutely, or whatever you want, whatever you want.
I could tell them about.
Well, you could tell us anything. We're here to hear it all.
Anything.
Piece of it. Well, camp is a whole different ball game, right? So I had counselors though that really enjoy going to camp with me, but they got it down to a science. I'm here to tell you, they would let the kids. They would get the kids to bring and spend their own money to bring little baskets with all the little Dollar Tree soaps and this and that, and let the kids go in. But as far as advice for the volunteers, don't ever think that what you're doing is not important. Just know that in the eyes of God, He sees you and He loves you and He loves the kids you're ministering to. And so, I can't remember now who it was, if it was Dwight Moody. I shouldn't quote something if I don't know, but if I can't remember. But it's so important what we do with children. So just do it. Just hang in there and realize that if God's called you. I think when I said called, I have said this to people that have sat across the table from me going, I want to work and all, but I just don't enjoy it. Well, if God hasn't called you to that, then find where He has called you and gifted you and go there and serve there.
Because He gifts every one of us in
Right.
some way or another.
Everyone in the church has spiritual gifts.
Absolutely. So, but stay close to the Lord and let your relationship with the Lord be the catalyst, and just love the kids and let them love you. But that would be my advice. I mean, that's simple, but it's kind of like keeping it simple, because volunteers, a lot of times sometimes they get taken for granted.
Absolutely.
And their hard work. And this week I'm serving in an area in crafts, and I was thinking back of the ladies over all those years that I went to camp that did the crafts. God bless them.
Yes.
This week I'm over there doing
patience.
it. Patient, yes. And what you do, you'll be rewarded for it, in heaven. Maybe not here, but in heaven.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I like what you said about being where God has gifted you and giving desires. I'm a real strong proponent of God-given desires. Now, that's if you're walking with the Lord, because that can be marred if you're not walking with the Lord, because you could have sinful desires and you can be out of God's will. But if you're walking with the Lord, I think of in 1 Timothy where Paul says if a man desires the office of an overseer, he desires a good work. And the Greek word for desire is like a passionate longing for. And if he desires that office, man, don't be a pastor if you don't have that God-given desire for that office. Don't be a kids ministry worker if you don't have that God-given desire for it. I would say this though, if you're thinking about kids ministry and you've never tried it, absolutely try it, because God works through experiences to feed our desires and our passions. Because I would have never done kids ministry if I didn't try it first and see.
Exactly. So what I said was mainly for those that are in it.
Yeah.
And they're not happy in it.
And I'm exactly with you on that.
Yeah.
So we would always, when we recruited volunteers, we would tell people, hey, look, don't run it up again next year. Like, don't teach that class again if your heart's not in it. Because wouldn't you rather have somebody who's passionate and loves the kids and welcome and then somebody who's just like, oh, I gotta do this again? You're only hurting the kids and really the body, because that's not healthy, spiritually for the body. So I like what you said about that. But man, if you have that desire to do it, go get it and use your gifts and let God fan those flames and and make that passion even stronger. So I like
Yes.
what you said about that. What has been for you an effective tool or technique when it comes to teaching kids God's word?
Yes. When I first went into puppet ministry or into children's ministry as a full-time director, I knew one thing I wanted to do was puppets because Sesame Street is still running
Right?
with puppets.
Yes.
And, you know, there's not a lot of companies now that'll offer the puppets and stuff, but hopefully they'll come back. But puppets are a great tool, an effective tool to get a point across, to teach a Bible verse, to do a skit. Of course, you never let a puppet get saved or, you know, do anything like that, but they can talk about salvation or that sort of thing. But we had a puppet called Scruffy, and my husband did Scruffy. And Scruffy had a heart that would come out from, it was a little pouch that was tucked in, and you'd bring it out, and then you could put an object in it and talk about the object of the day and relate it to the lesson. But puppets have been a very effective tool. And so I've got a lot of puppets that right now are not being used because of me not being connected with a puppet ministry. But I would advise you to pick back up a puppet. Puppets will, when I was teaching 4-year-old kindergarten, I had a puppet in my drawer, and his name was Pudding. And he would come out if the kids had been good and, you know, and all that kind of stuff. But yes, puppets are very effective.
Yeah, it really gets kids' attention, and you can add an element of humor pretty easily as well.
Yes.
Because inherently there's something funny about a puppet, and I don't know what it is. Like, if you just look at Kermit the Frog, you just like smile, right? Or like any of the Sesame Street guys, like Big Bird or whatever, you just kind of smile. When I was traveling with Neighborhood Bible Time in college, I had a dog named Mr. Spot. And now, like my son and I, we during COVID, everything shut down. So we went all online with our ministry. And we did a preschool ministry with puppets. And we had, this is so good. You guys can find this on YouTube if you want to watch it. We had a very serious guy in a suit, and his name was Jim. And then we had a unicorn who was a unibrow corn. He was a unicorn with a unibrow.
Oh.
And his name was El Señor Bosque Francisco Geronimo Jalisco Geraldo Gomez. And the interaction between the two was hysterical. It's just a great way to like, and we introduced the memory verse that way, but the unibrow corn always got everything wrong, so he'd call it the remembery verse, and just like little things like that kids can laugh at, and yeah, I really. When done right, I really think puppets are a good way of teaching kids, of adding variety, making it exciting or fun or funny, and yeah.
And one, I thought about this, one of the classes that, and one, a gift, I guess, is I can be up in front of 100 kids and control them, so to speak, get their attention, but one of the tools too, you can bring a puppet, and if you go, bring it out and set it on something, and just get over yourself and just move the puppet's mouth. People are going to watch the puppet's mouth, not yours.
Yeah.
They just don't. They might look over and see your mouth moving, but they don't care. They want to see what the puppet's doing.
Right.
So get your puppet out. Let it teach a Bible verse. Let the puppet get the Bible verse wrong, and then tell you. You tell it what's right, and the kids that's a very effective way of grabbing their attention. Good tool. Yeah, I'm glad you asked me.
I think something really important that you just said that's not just about puppets, but totally important just for kids ministry is you said, get out of yourself.
Yeah, or get over yourself.
Get over yourself.
Get over yourself.
For sure.
Kids don't care, but, they do, yeah.
Yeah.
So something that I think about sometimes is that, like, there are some really old school techniques that we would consider old school techniques, like puppets or like flannel graph or, things like that. But something that I think that I'm all about the use of technology. We're using technology right now.
Yes.
I'm not opposed to technology at all. But if everything is screen time for kids, and you'll notice Man, I read a book when I was in seminary. Let's see if I can remember the name of it. It wasn't Amusing Ourselves to Death. It was, I can't remember. But one of the things the book was talking about was how every like 3 seconds in a movie, it's a cut and it's a different angle. And that has had an effect on our attention span. And I talked to a filmographer friend of mine, and he said, you want to know how to make an audience really uncomfortable? Have a single shot camera hold the same shot for 30 seconds, and the whole audience gets on edge. Isn't that weird? So I think it's helpful in kids ministry if we can use technology. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it. But if we break from screen time and we use some old school things, like puppets are old school, it's a break from screen time. It's real human interaction with real human and real, in this case it's a puppet, real character interaction instead of maybe a cartoon, an animated, thing. Even flannel graphs, like that's so old school, but it still holds the kids' attention and it is a very welcome change of pace to just constant flashing, constant noise. Because a lot of kids ministry, the kids come in, they sit down, all the music is done via video. So someone's not leading the songs, they push play on the video and it's flash, 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 dance, 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 flash, 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 flash. And then when that's over, then they push play on a Bible story video and it's like flash, 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 flash. And then the teacher gets up and expects the kids to pay attention and stuff. And then I really like, just think about it. Think about how can I do a change of pace that's more of a personal interaction. And I think, we're just using puppets as an example, but that's an example of something that we're not just throwing technology in their face again.
Now, something that we used in the kids ministry that even for I think there were probably 60 kids sitting on the ground in front of me, but I would use those flip books, missionary
do you remember
stories.
Those missionary stories, and they had the pictures.
And the kids loved it. They paid attention.
Yeah.
They loved it and inspired them, for missions and stuff. So I love stuff like that.
Yeah.
And depending if you're in a small group like Sunday school, if the kids, if you've got an antsy one or one that just, if you do use flannel graph or something, you can use that one to help you.
Absolutely.
And then that one is taken out of the mix of causing chaos.
Yes, and being very
That's
helpful.
a free crowd control technique, and it's a good way to hook that kid. So I'm thinking back to years ago. Both of these guys have graduated from high school now, but when they were 5, in our Sunday Bible time, they were all over the place. People would have been oh, they must be on the spectrum, because they were just boom, explode everywhere. But we had those guys come up and help lead this song, this Bible song. And we let them get it all out during that.
Animated.
So the Bible verse was, for the wages of sin is death. And so we let them get, one of the kids had a really good mad face. And he'd be like, for the wages of sin. And the other kid had this great huge smile. But the gift of God is eternal. And he'd do this smile that was way over exaggerated. It was the biggest smile ever. And the kids would laugh and get a kick out of it. And we let them come and lead that song. And it was such a small thing. But like you said, it got them out of just being hyper there. But then they started enjoying, because now they're able to be a part of it. And we hooked those kids, and to this day, those kids are still hooked. They're not kids now, they're adults, but they're young adults.
Right, but they still love the church, which is incredible, being that age and loving the church and loving God's word.
Yeah. So that's a free crowd control technique. Get that kid involved in stuff like that. So in your years of serving in local church ministry, how did you get parents and kids ministry workers excited and on board with teaching the Bible?
Okay. Kids ministry workers and parents.
And that could be twofold.
Your volunteers, and you don't have to answer them both in one answer. You can answer, in both ways.
Okay, because, one technique that I did is I had a parent co-op ministry, which meant that the parents, if you had a child in the children's ministry, then I asked them to serve. I didn't want to put somebody teaching the Bible if they weren't a teacher. That wasn't their gift. But I asked them to serve, and so it would involve them in it firsthand. It would just be for a month, okay, and then I'd rotate some other parents in. But to be honest with you, that was a good way to get volunteers because I had a couple that they were on the rotation in children's worship, and once they got in there, they never wanted to leave, and they served 11 years.
Wow.
12 years. They were like, this is where we want to stay and serve. But as far as getting the parents involved, that was the way that I would get them in there and let them see how we did it and how it was done and that sort of thing. Not that it had to be that way had to be their way, but just getting them involved, because parents, their mindset a lot of times is just here.
Yes.
It's like, here, okay, we've got them all week. We want to go worship. We want to go whatever. And on Wednesday nights, it was a little bit different because they wanted to go shopping or they wanted to go date night.
We're going to drop the kids off.
And we're like, no, we need help. We need you. So the parent co-op and the rotation of parents. And we told them, look, they were like, we don't like, I'd have some dads that were like, I'm going to do the kid, but you can pour Kool-Aid. Could you pour the Kool-Aid or
security?
Or could you watch and just stand at the store and make sure they don't go out? Yeah, I had a VBS. I had a security one year. So, and they were like, oh, well, sure.
Right.
And then they get in there and they feel like, oh, we can do this. This is something.
And I think, too, if you have your parents filling those positions, just watching the teaching, it can help them connect it at home. So I saw what you learned. Let's talk about that,
Correct.
So now you're reinforcing the Bible at home in that way because they've seen it at the church setting.
Exactly.
So if there's one thing you could tell parents and kids ministry workers, and you have one chance to do it, you got your chance now. Go. What would you tell them?
This applies to both of you. Parents, workers that have children, you are the greatest influence on your children. Every adult that comes in contact with a child leaves their fingerprint on that child. Parents, you are the most important people to your child. So train them up well. Eternity is at stake. And the older they get, their soul is at stake. So don't take lightly your influence, your wisdom. You know your child better than anything. And when I was thinking about what you were going to ask, the Deuteronomy 6, to love the Lord your God with all of your heart and soul and mind, and then talk about it with your children and pass it on to the next generation. Because there was a generation back in Moses' day that forgot, that they didn't remember God's commandments, and that generation, they lost that generation. Yeah. Don't lose them. And what is it? Children don't care how much you know, volunteers, as much as they want to know how much you care. So they'll remember a children's volunteer that is always there and smiling and gives a hug and just pays attention to them. Sometimes the ones that are the introverted and that are sitting by themselves, those are the ones that I gravitate to draw them in, make them feel important, and just remember that you're being volunteers, you're being the hands and feet, mouth, eyes, ears of Jesus.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Deborah, for joining us.
Can I ask one more question?
Absolutely.
Miss Deborah, you are a part of an organization called Ignite 316.
Yes.
Can you quickly tell us what that is?
Yes.
Okay.
Ignite 316 is a nonprofit organization that was started in 2020. And what we do is we look for churches that will partner with us and that will go into their local elementary schools. We have the tools and the ways and methods to know how to try to get into that school and go in and teach the boys and girls in elementary schools. Have a Bible club one day a week.
Oh,
incredible.
Wow.
That's awesome.
We also, Ignite 316, if you've heard of Good News Bible Clubs and Child Evangelism, it's exactly like that. But we offer a variety of curriculum, and then we also hire interns, and that we will come in and we will go to some local colleges or Bible schools or high schools or whatever. We'll hire kids that want to go in and be on mission for the Lord right in their neighborhood.
That's awesome.
So that's what we do.
Very cool.
Yes.
Amazing.
Thank
and
you
is
for
there,
asking.
Is there a website that people can check out?
Yes, www.ignite316.com.
Okay.
Ignite
Excellent.
316.
Well, check that out.
Yes.
And we really appreciate you taking the time to be on our podcast.
Oh, thank you for asking me. It was my
Thank you,
pleasure.
Miss
Awesome. And we'll see you guys next time.